What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through episode 3 of the ELITE64 team. So this week we're going to take a look at the Game Week 4 team selection, as well as taking a look at the Game Week 3 team selection, and just seeing the decisions that these elite managers made over the prior game week. If you guys don't know what the ELITE64 is, it's basically FPL General, who we all know. It's his invitational mini league that contains some of the best managers in the world. If you guys want to put some numbers to those top 10k, top 1k finishes, go check out episode 1 and 2, which focus on Game Week 2 and 3, as I did calculate the top 10k, 5k, and 1k numbers in those videos. So it seems like you guys are enjoying this series, so as long as you guys are liking the video, as long as you're commenting down below, I'm going to continue to make it, as I think it's quite informative. The way I've been able to track these managers and their moves is through a Python script, and that's how I get the template numbers as well. So that's something you guys are interested in? Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as we usually do in these ELITE64 team selections, we're first going to take a look at the template, and please remember that you guys can't really afford this team. This is simply going to be the highest to kind of 5th most owned options in the defense, the midfield, and the 3rd most in the forward departments. And also there's no kind of team restrictions here, so you guys will see I've got 4 Liverpool players in this template, but this is basically just to show you the ownership stats. Now this season has been a pretty template season, as you guys know. Game week 1 was pretty template, game week 2, game week 3. Will game week 4 shape it up? Who kind of knows? I will be showing you guys my predicted transfer plans of these managers at the end of the video. But as always, take a look at the template and let me know in the comments down below how many of these ELITE64 template options you guys already own. Starting off in goal, there's been absolutely no movements in the goalkeeper departments. We still have Danny Ward at 100% and then Ramsdale at just under 36. So in terms of Danny Ward, those of you who went for the actual Leicester double up, a lot of managers actually went for the Leicester kind of double up. I think it's about 36, the same amount of managers that own Ramsdale. Those managers probably aren't too happy with Danny Ward's performances and overall Leicester's defense. In terms of Ramsdale, he's kind of been quietly ticking along, getting the clean sheets, not really getting those save points. However, a player like Sanchez that's cheaper than him is actually performing quite a lot better. But I do think most of these goalkeeper transfers are going to stay the exact same till that first wildcard, as the elite managers are pretty kind of conservative and not many of them use them on a goalkeeper transfer. However, going on to our defensive department, there have been some shifts in kind of ownership. I'll detail those as I touch on each player. The first player there, Trent Alexander-Arnold, 100% ownership. Nothing's changed there, still the most highly owned player in the template and also in terms of the defense. Now, I'm recording this before the Liverpool game. I'm just hoping that it does not get postponed. There's been a massive protest, if you guys don't know, at Old Trafford against the owners. So as of recording this video, the game is going ahead, but that might always change. The next two options have had a rise in ownership. It's going to be Reece James and also Cancelo. Now, Cancelo definitely the second highest, kind of edges James by about 8%, but just under that 99%, whereas Reece James just over the 90% mark. Now, both these two options in Game Week 3 had a very bad performance, but I guess there is a little bit of kind of good in seeing that the ELITE64 went for these options, and therefore it probably was a good decision to go with them. Now, these two options probably won't go anywhere, but there might be some shifts to bring in a certain creation, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Now, the first big kind of drop in ownership is going to come from Andy Robertson, currently owned by just below 36%, the exact same percentage as Ramsdale, and he's kind of halved his ownership. Now, I personally am in the ELITE64 and I made the transfer or the switch from Robertson to Luis Diaz with 2 transfers, and it seems like that's what the majority of managers actually did. Now, there has been a surprise entry or a new entry into the template. It's going to be the new Cucurella, kind of the new toy to play with at the current moment. However, he did get kind of no points in Game Week 3 for us, but with the ownership of just below 35%, definitely, as I said, the new transfer in. So overall, in terms of the defense, we've had some rises in Cancelo and James, a massive drop with Robbo, and then also a new entry Cucurella that just edges Ivan Perisic's ownership. But as you guys can probably see from the template, a pretty big at the back formation, and it seems like most of the ELITE64 preferring those 5 defenders. Going on to midfield department, and we still don't have one manager or 2 managers that own Mo Salah. He's just owned by 98.4%, but when we do look at captaincy, that's going to be a high effective ownership. Interestingly enough, Martinelli is at a rise in ownership. He currently is owned by the same amount of managers as Mo Salah and comes in about half the price. Now, Martinelli's start to the season has been red hot, but with some rumors about Pedro Neto potentially joining Arsenal, let's just hope that he stays in that starting 11 for the foreseeable future. Now, another player that's had a significant drop in ownership is going to be Leon Bailey. I think he's halved his ownership there. Most of the managers probably kind of got that value out of him, transferred him out at 4.9 or 5 mil, probably for Da Silva, which you guys will see a little bit later on. But that was a little bit expected. The template did not look that bad. The one transfer, or at least if managers wanted to burn a transfer, they could have taken Leon Bailey out to free up some funds. Now, the interesting thing about Luis Diaz is that he was not in any of our kind of selections before, but he has had a rise in ownership to just below that 30% mark. Now, most of those owners will come from kind of the Robertson sale, like what I did in Game Week 3, but that is still quite a low ownership in my opinion. Now we will see tonight with Salah and Diaz if they can put the goods up. I am favouring that fixture against United from an attacking point of view, so let's see if I am right as long as the game goes ahead. And then finally, Pedro Neto also had a massive drop in ownership, so 23.4%. I got rid of them this week, and I'm pretty sure most managers did because the Wolves attacker was simply not performing. But overall, not many changes in this kind of midfield department. We have had a new introduction of Luis Diaz over someone like a Mason Mount, so I just hope that transfer in pays due. And then finally going to our forward department, we've had 100% for Jesus, so he was under 100%, but now he is going to be. I think that 19-point haul in game week 2 kind of edged the ELITE64 into going for him. So he's going to be the highest owned player in the game alongside Trent. Haaland's healthy ownership has also stayed the same, 89%. And then we've seen a drop out of Harry Kane in favour of Tony. So Tony comes in as a new entry along with Cucurella and Luis Diaz at just under 11% after a good start to the season and game week 3 performing yet again. I'm pretty sure he'll be a popular transfer in come game week 4 and onwards. That's probably thanks to his lovely Brentford fixtures, but also Ivan Toney's form at the current moment. He's not only one of the best forwards, but one of the best players in the game at the moment. So as you guys can see, this is going to be the template. As I said, you guys can't afford this. We've got 4 Liverpool players. It's not kind of legal according to FPL, but we're going to run with it anyway. So let me know in the comments down below how many of the ELITE64 you guys own heading into game week 4. And will any of these players be transferred in or out before game week 4's deadline? Now before we go into the game week 4 team selection and transfer plan, or at least my predicted team selection and my predicted transfer plan, let's go over the captaincy for game week 3. And as you guys can see on screen right now, there's only one option to kind of go for. So Mo Salah was captained by 92.2% of the ELITE64. So tonight's fixture, as I'm recording this before the Liverpool game, we'll just see if it's going to be a good or bad game week, especially for those 4.7 that went for Haaland. So yet again, kind of showing the ELITE64 versus the overall ranks, the top 100k, the top 10k is massively different, as Salah's captaincy there was about 30%. I was expecting Gabriel Jesus to be the second option here, but no, I was actually wrong, but I think that might be because it was a 50-50 between Salah and Jesus, so some managers just went Maverick and went for Haaland. But let me know if you guys captained Salah as well. But now we're going to go on to my predicted team selection for game week 4 of the ELITE64, and I just want to give some clarity to some things before we get into the draft. So the first things first is I actually have preferred Luis Diaz over Robertson, and the reason for that is that the 5 at the back looks a bit more interesting without Robertson and Luis Diaz in the midfield department. Now yes, Robertson's ownership was actually higher than Luis Diaz, and therefore from a template point of view, that's not going to be accurate, but I think you guys can forgive me. As I said, the draft looks a little bit more interesting. But now heading on to the first talking point about the bench, and this is where I'm going to show you guys some ownerships of options that I didn't select, and these are simply because they are bench order options and therefore not so important. But Iverson, Andres, De Silva and Archer all have very high ownerships. De Silva obviously getting more ownership from that Bailey out transfer, but all 4 of these are pretty highly owned. Now in terms of the bench this week, the majority will probably stay on the bench. I know Andres against Brentford in game week 3 performed quite well, but if you guys look at the starting 11, you probably will understand why these bench options are going to be there. So talking about that starting 11, let's start off with Ramsdale on goal. I've preferred him to someone like an Iverson or Danny Ward, as they have Chelsea away. So Ramsdale comes in with a nice fixture against Fulham at home, but is that even a good fixture to be honest? Because Fulham are on high form, scoring tons of goals. So maybe this will be the week that Ramsdale finally gets us some save points, hopefully a clean sheet as well, and I'm pretty sure that 36% of the ELITE64 will be hoping as well. Going on to our back line, we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold against Bournemouth, Cancelo against Crystal Palace. We then have the Chelsea double-up of James and Cucurella against Leicester at home. And then finally we have Perisic, who I did swap out for Robertson, with Nottingham Forest away. So definitely the fixture that stands out there is going to be the Nottingham Forest game. They're simply terrible from an XG, kind of an attacking point of view. And if Perisic can start this fixture, I'm expecting a massive haul. Same could be said about Trent. I think Bournemouth also struggling to kick off this season. I think game week 1, they look pretty strong, but I do expect Trent at Anfield to do quite well. But overall, as you guys can see, the fixtures are quite good. I think most of these teams should keep clean sheets. I'm just hoping that Chelsea team rebounds, because Leicester's performance against Southampton in game week 3 was pretty dreadful. Then moving on to midfield department, we've got the 3 mainstays, Salah, Martinelli and Luis Diaz. Salah and Diaz against Bournemouth should be a plump fixture for them. I'm expecting both of them to start. Pretty much most people probably go for the Salah captain as well. And Bournemouth have been conceding goals for fun. So that's all for me. The defense looks pretty strong, but the midfield looks absolutely spectacular. Martinelli against Fulham, and I'm also expecting him to do quite well in that fixture. And then finally in the forward line, we've got Haaland against Crystal Palace, which might be a little bit of a tough game. Crystal Palace have been defending quite well. Man City this weekend we saw against Newcastle are up for the taking, so this might actually be quite a good game. But Jesus against Fulham, expecting Arsenal to keep on this good scoring form, is a newly promoted side against Liverpool. They actually look pretty decent, but I do expect Arsenal to at least score against them. So overall, I've taken Robertson out, I've put Diaz in, and I think you guys can agree the draft looks much better. And I also wanted to highlight Ivan Perisic, whose ownership is above 20% within the ELITE64, and I think that's only going to rise come game week 4's deadline. So looking at this kind of team, this looks pretty strong. Are you guys bringing any of these assets in? I think Perisic will be a popular transfer in. And how many of this team do you guys actually own? But now going on to the transfer plan, or my predicted transfer plan that the ELITE64 will do. Well, the first things first, I'm expecting most of these managers to actually bank a transfer. You guys saw the previous team selection. If you sub whatever defender you have in, or whatever midfielder you have in, chances are you have a pretty decent team, and therefore I think the biggest chance is going to be to bank a transfer. However, if these managers do want to make a transfer, I think there's one option on everyone's mind. It's going to be the Croatian Ivan Perisic. But the big thing about this transfer is, who do you actually take out, or who do you downgrade, who do you upgrade to afford him? Well, I think if some managers have some money in the bank, such as a 0.4, 0.5, I do think an upgrade on someone like a Cucurella could be quite good, or whatever 5.0 defender these managers do own. But in terms of a possible downgrade, I do think Reece James is probably on the radar, as most managers will probably want to keep Cancelo and Trent Alexander-Arnold. But I'm going to say this is going to be a kind of a disclaimer here, that I don't think the ELITE64 will do this transfer, and I'm pretty sure you guys will agree with me down in the comments below. The ELITE64 historically are quite kind of conservative managers. I doubt any of them will take kind of Reece James out for Ivan Perisic, unless maybe Tuchel comes out and says that he's going to start at right centre back again. So as I said, in terms of the transfer plan, I think banker transfer is probably the highest priority, but if they do want to bring Ivan Perisic in, I think it will only be if they can upgrade one of their cheaper defenders. But you guys can let me know what you guys think in the comments down below as well. But this is let's wrap up the video, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Please don't like if you did, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Hopefully Liverpool have absolutely banged. Salah has a hat-trick, Diaz a hat-trick, and Trent has a hat-trick of assists if the game does go ahead. But I'm Sonny, it's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.